Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Let's Bet It here on Pickswise. I'm Jared Smith, joined today by Mark Zeno. Exciting stuff, Mark. It's Saturday morning. We've got the NBA postseason officially starting today. I know last night, the last few nights, we've kind of gotten the appetizers, but the main course begins later this afternoon. Ton of games on the card. NHL pretty much closing up shop for the season. Big Saturday slate for that as well. And, of course, a big baseball card as well, which we're going to get to. All of it on tap for today. But how was your Friday night? Anything exciting in the Zeno household?
No, yeah, I mean, listen, the Hawks got off to a really bad start. It didn't start to go well, and then I started drinking, and everything turned around. So I cracked open the Woodford Reserve last night and
Nice.
started enjoying the. Look, give him a ton of credit. I mean, Trae Young is just amazing, and it is sort of look. I live in Atlanta, you know that, but I'm a Knicks fan. I grew up in New York, so when I say this objectively about Trae. The national slight against him is a little bit ridiculous at this point. The fact that he didn't even make third team All NBA is a little bit laughable at this point in time. And the guy averages 29 and 10. He had 32 in the second half last night and just put a team on his back that lost their second best player in the lineup in the second quarter to a knee injury. So it's like, what do you do at this point in time? You know, I mean, how do you keep denying this guy his due nationally with where he is with everybody else?
Yeah, Trae was unbelievable last night. We'll get into some recaps for what we saw in the NBA last night and what it means for the postseason coming up starting today. And then, of course, in the days and weeks to come. Also, of course, on the show, Better Up. That's where we're going to start here on Let's Bet It this morning. Baseball picks. And we start like we do every day and like every game in the first inning. And the YRFI, NRFI bets have been a lot of fun. Mark, I know you and I have dabbled in them, not exclusively, but pretty heavily through these first couple of weeks of the season. And I think they are fun. They are exciting. And they are profitable if you keep betting the YRFI. 9-6 yesterday, 61-52 for the season. If you just blind bet every YRFI so far this season, you're up almost 2.5 units. Yeah. One team specifically that has not yet been NRFI'd yet is the St. Louis Cardinals, 6-0 over 6 units of profit. Again, certain teams just have this penchant for starting fast. A lot of it is who they're facing and the pitchers, of course, too. But first inning offense, Mark, that is something that we're going to look at a lot today. And we've got some YRFIs on the card as well here this afternoon.
Yeah, and look, St. Louis is not only averaging more than 1 run per game in the first inning, they're averaging 2 runs per game in the first inning, which is insane. And it's early. And look, you know, and I said this earlier in the week when I was on with Lauren Jabara, that these bets, they're systemic, right? The percentages are going to bear themselves out over the course of the season. Now, we have a small sample size at this point in time, so it's really tough to figure it out, and you really can't look back anything from last year because a team that was good at scoring runs in the first inning last year might be bad at this year for a variety of reasons. Again, like look at the Atlanta Braves are a perfect example. They lead the majors in strikeouts, and they're not scoring right now, but that's a lineup that's going to score a ton of runs this year. So it's hard to forecast this thing. You have to let a little bit of this play out, but you ride the streaks that are on, the ones that are there, and there's no reason not to get on St. Louis. It's against Milwaukee. Now, Milwaukee is a team right now, correct me if I'm wrong, John, I don't think they've allowed a run in the first inning yet this year. They're averaging 0.8 runs in the first inning against the Milwaukee team. So one of these two teams should be able to find a run somewhere. Steven Matz in his last start against Pittsburgh was great for 3 innings and then got shelled and ended up losing to the Pittsburgh Pirates. How do I know that? Because I bet on the St. Louis Cardinals in that game. So I remember it well, but I like the first inning over a half run between these two teams. The price is not bad. What is it? Plus 112, I think, somewhere in that range.
Minus
112. I'm sorry, minus 112. So you're not paying a ton of juice on it. I think it's a great play here to start.
Yeah, I don't mind it. The only reason that I didn't play it full is because I'm trying to stay disciplined early in the year and only play plus money. But this was on my card, and the only reason I didn't play it is because it wasn't plus money. And again, that's maybe I'm being too stubborn. I put a half a unit on it because I trust Mark and I trust the cap. Combined 12-1, those two teams to the YRFI this season. All right, here are the 3 plus money ones that I have on the card today. I'll run through them very quick. Mark, you can give me your 2 cents. Astros, Mariners. This is a yes at plus 110. Seattle 6-2 to the yes so far this season. Houston just 2-5. Houston's offense has been bad so far to start this season, for lack of a better word. And that's an offense. They did lose Carlos Correa, but they still have Altuve, Bregman, a lot of really good players in that offense. I expect that offense eventually to get going. Flexen Verlander, that's the matchup on the mound today. Flexen, he's got some upside, but his first inning ERA last season was almost 6. And that is something that can be a definable trend. There are pitchers that just don't, that are really good. Like, for instance, Zach Eflin, another guy yesterday we were on, that just don't start the game well. Their first inning ERA much higher than the rest of the game. So that's where I'm at with Chris Flexen. Verlander, too, slightly elevated. Almost a 4 ERA in the first inning. Now, granted, that's his whole career. So hard to really look at that as as a smaller sample size. That's his whole sample size, but it's also his highest ERA per inning up until the 8th. So again, he's a guy that just his best stuff usually comes later in the game. So I got plus 110 to the YRFI on Astros Mariners. I'm going to take a chance and go with the no, Cubs Rockies at plus 130. Again, this game is at Coors Field. Obviously, that's why the no is astronomical price. The NRFI hit yesterday. These teams did not score in the first inning yesterday. And you've got Mark Leiter Jr. on the hill, who has never faced this Rockies lineup. And he hasn't faced this current Rockies lineup. He has had one appearance at Coors Field. He retired 13 of 15 batters with 9 strikeouts. This was back in 2017, a long time ago. But he has pitched at Coors Field before. So he understands the dynamic a little bit, pitching at altitude. So we'll go plus 130 on the no for Cubs Rockies. And then I'm going to take another crack. I hit Phillies Marlins yes yesterday. I'll take another crack to the yes today. Each team has hit the YRFI twice in a row. This one hit in the bottom of the first yesterday with 2 outs. But I think, to me, it's Ranger Suarez who has almost a 5 ERA in the first inning. Trevor Rogers on the other side has been pretty decent in the first inning. But plus 110, I'll take that plus money with the YRFI because, again, I think these are coin flip bets. So I'm going to try to be on the right side of the plus price.
And again, I don't hate the idea of staying on plus money, right? That's a smart way to approach betting. And for those people who are new to betting, you should have an approach like that in certain things where you just have a limit. Again, we'll talk about this with K props. Like, I won't pay more than minus 135 on a K prop. It's just not, to me, I don't see the value in it given the variance that is there. You should set limits like that for yourself on certain bets just to keep yourself disciplined. And if you stick to them, more often than not, it's going to benefit you.
Yeah, I agree. I think with baseball, especially because of the volume of baseball. I mean, we were talking about before the show. I had 2 or 3 bets that I didn't even put on my card today that I normally would have if I didn't have all these other bets that I thought were slightly better. And I'm averaging 5 to 7 baseball bets a day. I mean, that's probably 1 or 2 too many, but the volume of baseball lends you to be a little bit more loose with the amount of plays that you're on because it's really, really hard to differentiate plays 1 through 10. How do you rank that? Let's say you've got 10 plays on your card. It's really hard to go from 10 to 5. It's a little easier to go from 5 to 3. But when you have 10 plays on your card, you've got all this stuff, it's really hard to – so volume in baseball is okay. But, again, Mark has his rules. K-props only spend a certain much. I have my rules. NRFIs, YRFIs. I'm trying to go plus money. Everyone has their little nuances to betting. You stay disciplined. You stay to your approach, and that usually works. Speaking of K-props, we both have a lot today. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Yanks-Orioles game first? Because you've got 2 picks for that one. And then I'll go into some K-props, and then you'll hammer home with your last K-prop. How about that?
Sounds good. And they're sort of tied in what I'm going here with the Yankees and Orioles. I'm going to take the Yankees on the run line minus 1.5. It's only minus 106. The Yankees have been very good at Camden Yards over the last several seasons. They've seemed to just own the Orioles, who are pathetically bad at this point in time. That said, the Yankees lost a tough one last night in extra innings, 2-1. I expect the bats to come alive tonight against the Baltimore Orioles, who are starting Tyler Wells, who got shelled in his first start. He only lasted an inning and 2/3 in that game and gave up 4 runs. And so I think the Yankees bats will come alive and they'll be able to score. And really, it's tied into, it's more of a bet on the Yankees starter today, James Taillon, who in his first start, you bet his K-prop under, and we're on the wrong side of it. I'm actually going to take his over today because it's right at my threshold at minus 134. Look, the Orioles strike out more than any team in Major League Baseball, almost 12 Ks per game to start this year. Taillon was impressive in his first start. He went 5 innings, gave up 5 hits, just 2 runs, struck out 6. I expect that Aaron Boone will allow Taillon to stay in this game a little bit deeper than he did last time. I think it's going to be interesting to see with K-props here, Jared, in these second and third starts that we can expect that starters will be able to go a little bit deeper in games if they are competitive, if they're working towards quality starts. So you see 5 innings and 2 runs for Taillon. Aaron Boone may allow him to go to 6 innings for 2 runs just to start to save the bullpen a little bit more and start to stretch these starters out a little bit more. I think that's the natural progression of this thing. Being that it's at 4.5 against the worst strikeout team in the league, I can back Taillon not only to get me the Yankees in position to cover the 1.5 on the run line, but to go over his K-prop. So I combine them together, and that's how I did that handicap.
I like that. And again, I think looking at yesterday's results in the bullpen shouldn't be the sole reason for your handicap, but it is a nice little feather in your cap, pun intended, because those things matter. Who's available, and then how you can push a guy. You might get an extra 10 pitches, 1 inning extra, and that's the difference between a win and a loss. Because for example, I lost 2 K-props yesterday by the hook. Usually these are wins or losses by the hook. When you have low numbers like this, you don't blow out the K-prop numbers very often. So if you can just find those little edges, very key. All right, I'll give you Corey Kluber under 5.5. I got this at minus 110 over at Caesars. Projected for 4.3. White Sox, very low strikeout team, 17.7% this season. That's 3rd fewest in the league. And he has good numbers against the White Sox. He has a 31.5% K rate, but a 305 batting average against this White Sox lineup that has been known to mash a little bit. And I don't think it's the Ks that's really the cap here as much as it is the innings, because over the last 5 seasons, which have been kind of the back 9 of Corey's career, he's been about 9 Ks per 9 innings, which is about 1 per inning. So that means he's going to have to go 6 innings, I think, in order to hit this. And I just don't think he's going to go 6 against a good White Sox lineup on the road against the low strikeout team. So we're going to go under 5.5 Corey Kluber. Under 4.5 Ian Anderson. And you can give me some context on Ian Anderson. But he is a guy that just has fallen off the map, came onto the scene hard in 2020, went to the minors last year, and just overall, you're seeing the numbers decrease, the walks increase, the strikeouts per 9, the lowest since rookie ball last year. And he only lasted 2 2/3 against the Reds lineup. That isn't like a mashing lineup anymore without Castellanos, without, some of their big sluggers. 5 walks too in that game. And I just think the pitch count at San Diego, a really good Padres lineup, I think that's going to be a struggle. It's a little over your price range, laying 45 cents, but I don't see him getting to 5 strikeouts today.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it too. And the thing with Ian Anderson, his home road splits are pretty significant. He's been much better at Truist Park. And I backed Ian Anderson in his K-prop in the opener against Cincinnati and bet against Hunter Green, who ended up losing both of those things. So, Anderson needs a bounce back start. That's a little bit of my concern here more than anything that, let's see how the kid responds. He shouldn't call him a kid. He's old enough now to be a guy. He's a man. Anyway, but nonetheless, I think that's the challenge for me and why I walked away from it. I need to see how he responds. And he's on the road against a good lineup like San Diego. I don't mind where you are. For me, it's just going to be a pass, though.
Yeah, I think it was the walk percentage that San Diego has, top 10, in the league in walks, over 10%, that really got me to that point. Walks are the death of strikeouts. They slow the game down. They take the pitcher out of his routine. They put the pitcher in the stretch. Obviously, so do hits. But walks show that you're not really hitting your spots. So a team that walks a lot, like San Diego, against the pitcher like Ian Anderson, certainly something to keep in mind. I'm taking a flyer on Matt Manning under 3.5. It's a plus money, plus 110. It's a low number. I got burned with the Royals last night. They just decided to just strike out a ton, and Skubal went bananas. He had 7. His total was 4.5. He went way over his total. And the Royals overall, very low strikeout team. They had the lowest strikeout rate in the league until last night. Last night they struck out 11 times. Now they're up to 26. So you could see how one bad game this early on in the year can really skew those rankings. But I'll go back to the well with fading anyone facing the Royals in strikeouts, because I just think this Royals team is very disciplined. And Manning is a guy that has struggled. Just had 2 strikeouts over 6 innings against the Red Sox, too. So he actually went length against Boston in his last start. But he is just not a strikeout pitcher, and the Royals are just not a strikeout team. So we'll go under 3.5 on Matt Manning, plus 110. And then the last one, we were talking about this kid a little earlier. He is a kid, and he is a stud. Hunter Green. I'm going to keep playing the Hunter Green prop over until they move it. 4.5 is like a fair price, even though he's only projected for 4.6. This guy had 7 strikeouts in 5 innings in his last start. He's going to go 5. I feel comfortable that he's going to get 1 strikeout per each inning. Hunter Green, right on your threshold for price at minus 135. I know you said you were talking about him, thinking about him. Why did you end up not playing him?
Well, look, he was at FanDuel at minus 145 and at DraftKings at minus 150. So I wasn't going there.
I got Caesars at minus 135.
Yeah, and then I looked at his under and got it at plus 118. So I'm going to crossfire here with you.
Wow.
I'm going to go under. Look, the Dodgers are 11th in K rate in Major League Baseball as far as fewest Ks per game. They don't strike out a lot. This is a really accomplished lineup with a bunch of professional hitters. They faced a Braves lineup that is accomplished and has a bunch of professional hitters. Now, again, the Braves are striking out more than any other team in Major League Baseball. I look at that knowing just from covering the team, that's not necessarily something that I think is systemic. I think you're just having a bunch of guys who are having bad starts, particularly Dansby Swanson and Eddie Rosario for the Braves, who are striking out a ton early on. That said, again, you're telling me that a kid who pitched 9 innings in spring training, gave up 9 runs and 4 home runs, had a great first start against the defending World Series champion, now has got to go on the road again and face the team that was in the NLCS last year that only, strikes out 7 times a game. I don't know. It just, when I was getting plus money in that range, comparatively speaking to what I was going to pay for the over, it seemed like too much value to walk away from the under. So I took the under here. Let's see how Hunter Green responds. It's a very small play for me. I'm sort of just dipping a toe in the water here on somebody that we don't have a lot of data on, right? Like we just don't know.
Yes, I agree.
So as much as I don't do the gut feeling thing all that much, I'm going to gut feel it a little bit here, and let's look at a young man making his 2nd ever start in Major League Baseball and fade it.
That's fair. And you're right about the Dodgers. Their lineup is not a strikeout heavy lineup.
No.
For me, a guy like Green with his stuff.
Oh, yeah.
If it's 4.5, I'm going to keep playing it until they move it, and then I'll probably stop.
And again, I looked, it was the same reason I said the kid struck out 7 in his first start. It's like, well, there should be a little bit of an adjustment there in only 5 innings because, as I said, he'll probably get a chance to go more than 5.
He's going to go 5. I think 5 is fair.
Right, but as long as he's not getting blown out, as long as he hasn't given up more than 3 runs, he'll have a chance to get into the 6th inning here. So the market adjustment on these second starts for the K-props is going to be interesting to see to the 3rd one as well. How many managers are stretching guys out? How many guys aren't being able to get stretched out because they didn't pitch well enough to merit getting into the 5th and 6th innings, right? Like go back to Kluber, who only lasted 4 2/3 last time, but that's because he walked 4 batters in 4 2/3 innings. And I remember I bet his over K-prop and I lost by the hook because he only had 5, not 5.5, and he got yanked in a game that they were winning handily. It was 4-0. Yeah. So, he didn't pitch well enough to warrant it. How well is he going to pitch today versus the 3rd start? Because the managers are weighing this out. How much do we stretch guys out versus how well are they pitching enough to stay in hell? We just saw this week, Clayton Kershaw got pulled in a perfect game after 7 innings, right? So, managers are more concerned right now with the health of their pitchers than necessarily anything else.
That's why I always give the benefit of the doubt to the under first. And I need a really good reason to bet the over on a K-prop. Hunter Green throwing 100, that's a decent reason. He might be one of the best K per 9s in baseball this year. Him and Dylan Cease look like I made the mistake yesterday of fading Cease again. The reason is because they bumped his number up to 7.5, and I was like, all right.
Well, I don't blame you at that point.
You're going to keep bumping his number up. I'm going to keep taking it. And what happens? He gets to 8. Again, there is not a lot of margin for error with these K-props. So when they do bump the numbers up, you have to be willing to go contrarian and take the other side.
And that was my thing with Hunter Green, again, seeing what the juice was. And going back to what you talked about before with the system, when it comes to K-props, I just think it's wise to set a threshold of the amount of juice you're willing to pay. And
me, it's about 50 cents.
Yeah.
I think 50 is fair because it's kind of a round number in my head. But again, 35 is fair too.
I am much more liberal in the NHL with first period overs, willing to pay. Like, I'll pay 160. because those are so super systemic and the percentages have consistently bore themselves out that I don't mind paying a little bit more because I've made enough money on playing the percentages the whole way through.
It's fair. All right, let's move on to NBA. By the way, I know we're giving out a ton of picks on MLB. The only recommendation I can have for me is to go to my spreadsheet. If you miss anything, check them out. I try to tweet them out after the show. I know it's a lot. Baseball is going to be a high volume sport for us this year. We're going to be playing a lot of bets every day, probably between, for me, 5 to 7 every day. It's a lot. Manage your bankroll accordingly. Stay disciplined. It's April 16th. We got 6 months of this. It's a long season.
Giddy up.
Giddy up. All right. Not a long season anymore. The shortness, NBA. We're at the point of no return. The play-in games are in the past. We have our final 8 in each conference. Any quick thoughts about what you saw during the play-in week, I guess I'll call it, before we officially turn the page to the real postseason?
I'll note that all 6 play-in games went under. Why? Because they're elimination games, and that tends to happen. I would look for some of these depressed totals from these play-in teams and try to go back to the over because there will be a sense of, whew, now I got 7 games, right? Every game is not an elimination game. So something worth noting, and even think about it for next year, the play-in games will denote lower totals because they are odds makers put it out there like it's another regular season game, right? Charlotte Atlanta was another regular season game. They played each other. Same thing with Atlanta Cleveland. It was another. They put the number out there like another. They didn't bake into the fact that it was a game 7 for all things considered.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. We do have 2 new series prices to report. We went over them yesterday with Scal. Obviously, all 6 that we had. Now we have all 8. In my eyes, not a ton of betting value on either, but I'll give you a crack here. Heat laying $4 against the Hawks. And the Suns, I mean, just stay away from that. Minus 2,500 against the Pels. Anything for it? Is Atlanta live? I can't touch the Pels, but is Atlanta live in their series against the Heat? You're an Atlanta guy.
No. I mean, I would wait to see what the Clint Capella injury official word is that we'll get later on today. But still, even with Clint Capella, the problem for the Atlanta Hawks is that with a team as defensively competent as Miami, they can focus on Trae and dare anybody else to beat them. Now, when the Hawks played Charlotte, it was Trae Young and it was 5 or 6 other guys. On most of the nights throughout the regular season and in a team against like Miami, it's usually Trae Young and only 1 or 2 other guys. So Miami can turn around and say, I dare the rest of this team to make shots at the rate that they need to beat us. Miami's lengthy, they're aggressive, they are very fast on defense, and they're great on the perimeter where the Hawks live and die. So as much as I'd love to continue to back playoff Trae, and it'll be interesting to see what he does in game 1, right? Just as a tangent here, let's go back to last year. Game 1's on the road. Trae Young faced 3 of them. Against the Knicks, 32 points, outright win. Against the 76ers, 35 points, outright win. Against the Bucks, 48 points. Outright win. All in game 1s on the road.
He's a stud. Maybe I'll play his prop to the over, and that's it. I don't have any single game bets today. I am tailing Scal with the series plays he gave out yesterday. I'll give them to you again one more time, and then Mark's got some plays on the games today. I'm on the Grizzlies, minus 1.5 games, laying 30 cents at FanDuel. All 3 of these are at FanDuel, by the way. Grizzlies, laying 30 cents, minus 1.5 games. Raptors, laying 52 cents, plus 1.5 games. And then the Mavs laying 58 cents. This is like, I guess, the best bet because I laid, $1.58 on it. Plus 2.5 games. So the Mavs only have to win 2 games, and then we win that bet. I also put a unit on the Warriors to win the West of 5-1. That's at MGM. And that's all I have today. I'll have a bet tomorrow on the Bulls Bucks game. I'm probably going to take the Bulls catching a bunch of million points, but for today, Mark, you've got a bunch, and you've got a first quarter bet too, right out of the gate, coming in hot with this Grizzlies game.
Giddy up. You know me. I love the quick action. I told you. It's just let's just get this over with, At this stage of my life, I don't have patience to sit through all this stuff. So Memphis and Minnesota, 2 of the highest scoring teams in the league. In fact, the 2 highest scoring teams in the league by 0.3 of a point. Minnesota has the advantage here, but it is Memphis's defense that's markedly better than the Timberwolves, who are 24th in the NBA in points allowed. Memphis averages the most field goal attempts of any team in the league per game this year. They're going to make a ton of shots. I have very little concerns about Memphis starting slow, being nervous or not being crisp at the outset of this thing. Ja Morant is back and he's healthy. I think there's a ton of overconfidence by the Minnesota Timberwolves, judged by how they came out of their play-in game. So not only am I going to back Memphis and lay the 6.5 points in the game, but Memphis scores more points on average than any other team in the NBA in the first quarter. I'll take Memphis minus 2.5 in the first quarter and back them for the whole game minus 6.5. There's no reason they should start slow. That's going to be an amazing crowd there in Memphis, and they are ready for this. This is a young team who's still got a ton to prove and wants to prove a lot. I think they get out early against Minnesota and force them to play catch up. So first quarter minus 2.5, and then minus 6.5 in the game. Back to the Eastern Conference. Let's go to Toronto, getting 4.5 from the Philadelphia 76ers. Who has more pressure on them to win a game one home game than Philadelphia, right?
Nobody.
Like this, the town will revolt if they lose this game. Toronto covered all 4 regular season games against Philadelphia, and 3 of them they were dogs. This is a Toronto team that is lengthy and athletic. They are great on defense. I think they're a matchup nightmare. I think we've seen a little bit of inconsistency from the Philadelphia offense as of late. Joel Embiid's going to get his, but if you get James Harden missing threes early and missing shots, you know what James Harden's going to do? Take a ton more shots and miss a lot more shots. And that helps me out here with Toronto getting points in this spot. So I like the Raptors getting the 4.5 here. Philadelphia's best bet is to score from the free throw line. They're the number 1 free throw shooting team in the NBA. But Toronto's a very disciplined team, and they're extremely well coached. Even though they don't have the studs offensively, Philadelphia cannot play from behind against a team like Toronto, because Toronto doesn't have the horses in the barn offensively, Jared, to sort of keep up and play catch up when they need to. But if Toronto plays with a lead, they can choke the pace and slow it down to what they want and force the other team to have a lot of bad shots. So I like Toronto getting 4. And then finally, over in Golden State, Denver. Steph Curry is back. I think this is a depressed total, given that we haven't seen Steph play. You'll get normal Steph
too.
Yeah, you'll get normal Steph in this thing. There's no reason to believe that he won't. And I wrote this up for the Pickswise website. It was one of my plays today. Is the over in this spot? Denver's defense is a liability. 24th in the league in opponents' field goal percentage. That's a bad place to be against a great shooting team with Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. Denver's offense is also legit. They're second best in effective field goal percentage on the offensive end. They're going to have their hands full slowing down Nikola Jokic. They don't need much else from everybody else, but this is a very short number, comparatively speaking, to what I thought it was going to be closer to 230. So I'll take the over 223 Golden State and Denver.
Yeah, it opened 225.5 at MGM, and I'm seeing 222.5 now. So that thing dropped. And again, at this stage of the season, the numbers are pretty spot on. So when you see any spread or total move 2-3 points, 1 possession in the NBA, that's usually a good spot to fire away.
Yep.
Love Memphis. Man, they're going to be a tough out. And the angle of fading Minnesota after what looked like they won the Super Bowl the other night, I think that is tremendous. And everyone's on today. Everyone's on. So I got the splits. These are at MGM. Everyone's on Dallas. Everyone's on Utah against Dallas. 89% of the handle. No surprise there without Luka. A lot of people are on Memphis. I understand that. Almost 80% of the handle. Everyone's on Philly. 75% of the handle. Nuggets Warriors is relatively split. More so, tilted towards Golden State, but it's not astronomical. Hands down, the biggest public bet of the day at MGM, the Utah Jazz. Everyone is hammering them today. Over 75% of the bets.
Pass for me.
90% of the handle. Yeah, no, I think the way to play it is what Scal said. I think you take 2.5 games with the Mavericks, put them in your back pocket, and we'll see this series go to 6. And then if it does, you're good. And I think that's the way that I'll play. This is an interesting one. To me, I go back and forth. I know you're much more invested game to game in the NBA. I do think the series prices are the best way to play, especially the first round, when we're still kind of seeing what the playoff rotations are going to be. Teams do tighten their rotations in the postseason. Yes. I do think the series spreads or the series prices in general do offer a lot of value. What do you think about that?
I think they do. I mean, again, so take, for example, we had Jonathan Von Tobel on earlier in the week, and he's backing Toronto in the series over Philadelphia, getting plus money. I think it's plus 400. And I understand it, right? Because I think Philadelphia is the kind of team that either is getting bounced in this series or is playing in a game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
Like I think it's feast or famine with them. I don't think there's much of a middle ground for them. So if they get out of this first round, they'll be a lot more comfortable going forward. I'd feel more comfortable buying a price on them in the second round or in the semifinals rather than the first round. The problem is the good teams, you're paying way too steep of a price. The bad teams, you know that they can't compete. You know, I'm talking about the 8 and the 7 seeds in reality. And even some of the 6 seeds can't really compete in reality with the top 3 seeds in a given conference. So it's hard for me to get value. When you get to the second round, the numbers are much more favorable on both sides, if you ask me. So I usually wait on first round matchups. But I think what Scal said is a great way to play it in certain spots is just take the plus 2.5 games as far as, you know, wins and losses or whatever it is and use that as the measure to get out of the first round.
This has to be the first time in recent history that a team home court, the Dallas Mavericks, are plus 2.5 on a series spread. I mean, they're getting
they're not going to get Luka for any game in this series. Like, I mean, that's just the reality of the case. They're trying to play close to the vest, but anybody who's had a calf strain, this is a 2 or 3 week during the regular season. The guy's off 2 or 3 weeks.
Utah, I think more of the handicap for Scal at least was a fade of Utah too, where they were not a team that is ready to blow out a team, you know, sweep a team.
No, because their offense has sputtered this year. They're just not as good as they need to be offensively. Their
I'll laugh when Dallas wins outright today. We basically win our bet if Dallas wins outright today. Not officially, but I feel very good if we're up 1-0 in the series. That Utah won't win 4 straight, which is the only way that would be the case that we would lose. Game 1s can be interesting. Game 1s, the dogs, the big dogs. We'll talk about the Bulls Bucks tomorrow. Funny things happen in these NBA games. And we saw it last night. Everyone thought the Cavs were going to blow out the Hawks after that first half. And then Trae Young said, not so fast, my friend. These games are never over. They are never over. And the dogs have life in the playoffs with the exception of maybe, you know, the really, really, really stinky ones. Maybe the Pelicans are one of those stinky dogs. All right, let's wrap things up before we get to plays of the day. NHL. So my theory on NHL, we've got 3, 4, 5 games left in the year, depending on who's, you know, where. I'm kind of off the NHL bandwagon for at least a week. I want to see how these teams finish up next week, and then we'll go hard in the postseason. I know you're sticking with the first periods, but any concern at all about teams seeing the finish line? I know in hockey it's a little different. In fact, if you were going to ask me all 4 major sports, which sport cares the least about how much time is left in the regular season, tanking, all that stuff, I would say hockey players are like the most insulated from it because these guys just only know one speed. But I do think there is a sense of, all right, the postseason is about to be here. Let's make sure we don't screw up and get somebody hurt or do something crazy. But what are you looking at today on the ice?
All right. Zeno's period is you guys.
There's Zeno's. It's that time of the month.
Yes, it is that. It's that time of the day. Anytime on this show. Nonetheless, let's go to Minnesota and St. Louis. First period over at -144. You're talking about 2 of 8 teams that have cashed the first period over at least 40 times this year. That's better than 50%. Some of these, Minnesota is one of the highest teams at closer to 60%. Again, it's a little bit juicy, but it's below my threshold for a first period over. This one should cash easily. Going to first period under between the New York Rangers and the Detroit Red Wings. The only concern I have here is that the Rangers may score 2 goals in the first period.
Sturkin is in net. I just confirmed that.
Yeah, against a crappy Detroit team, but Detroit's not going to score on the Rangers here. So it's all up to the weather. I believe the Rangers are going to score 2 goals here. They can slow play this thing. Neither of these teams are coming off a back-to-back. It was a very light slate in the NHL last night. So there's no concerns there. But I just trust that the Rangers won't give up a goal in the first period and keep my fingers crossed at plus money, Jared, at plus 118, that they don't score 2 themselves. So a first period under there. And then I'm just going to take an over goals total between Tampa Bay and Winnipeg. Winnipeg was one of the 4 teams that played last night. And even though they get good goaltending from Hellebuck, this is a team right now that is scoring a ton. Winnipeg is, and I know they're on a back-to-back, but I'm sort of looking at it from the standpoint of they may be a little bit tired. Tampa Bay is a high-scoring offense. They still love to put the puck in the back of the net here. I'm getting a lower number than I would have expected at 5.5. So I jumped on it last night. As soon as I saw it, didn't wait. I'll take the over 5.5 goals, Tampa Bay and Winnipeg.
Love it. I do think if I look at the NHL as a whole, I'm excited for the playoffs. I think there's some teams that we're going to buy low on. I'm going to be doing I do this every year. I didn't track it last year because I didn't have my tracker set up like I do now, but I'll be tracking it this year. Overtime bets for every NHL game in the playoffs. That's another one. I'll throw a unit on every overtime, just because maybe not a full unit, probably like a half. Because the NHL postseason is unlike any other. Super excited about it, but we got another week to wait. All right, plays of the day. I'll start with a Pickswise 3-star from the site. There's actually a few of them. Zeno, you got one. You mentioned it earlier. I won't talk about that one, but it is on the Nuggets Warriors. Go to it, check it out. And then Philip Tomich is on board with our Grizzlies today. He's back in the Grizzlies too. And then Luke Lindholm has if you're interested in the MLS, he's got a bet on the Columbus Crew. 3-star plays on the site, pickswise.com. Check him out. And of course, the app as well. Great resource for quick and easy 3-star access. All right, plays of the day. You're going NRFI for a play of the day. You want to get in and get out and move on with your life, Mark. Talk to me about it.
I told you, I can't get enough at this point in time. It's as soon as I start handicapping baseball, all I do is look at the first inning.
I love it.
That said, Tampa Bay and Chicago going under the half run in the first inning here at -110. Now, over is also -110. So whenever I have even money, I feel like on both sides of it, that is, I feel like I can really find some value advantages based off of situational spots. Corey Kluber is starting for Tampa Bay. Michael Kopech is starting for Chicago. Both of these guys went at least 4 innings last time. They gave up 0 or 1 runs. They both struck out a fair amount of guys. Kluber had 5 and Kopech had 3. I say all that to say I think these guys are going to start and get a little bit deeper into the game. This was a very low-scoring game last night, 3-2 between these two teams. But the clincher for me, Jared, was the weather. It's going to be about 38, 40 degrees at first pitch for a 2 o'clock start Eastern time. And you're going to have about 12 to 15 mile an hour winds. That's enough for me to say that these guys who are on back-to-back day games, and don't underscore what back-to-back day games is, these players are used to a certain routine, and games are more at night than they are during the day. They'll be a little bit sluggish to start this game. The weather will be cold. I could take the first period under, first inning under. I'm just get me in and out. First inning under, Tampa Bay, Chicago, -110. Let's go.
It's a good point about the weather. I do like that for Kluber's under as well, because he's an older guy. He was indoors in his first start. Now he has to go outdoors. I didn't check his day-night splits. I should have. I'm looking at them right now. If you just hold on 1 second, because I think that's another thing for pitchers. Day-night splits for pitchers is very important. These guys have routines, and they just sometimes they stick to them, sometimes they don't. He was about even last year, day-night with the Yankees. 3.58 ERA in day games, 3.96 at night. So not enough of a difference there really to make any significant examples. All right, Noah Syndergaard. We are fading Noah Syndergaard for our play of the day. Under 4.5 strikeouts. I was shocked when I looked at his Fangraphs projection. He's projected for 2.1 strikeouts in 5 2/3 innings. This is Noah Syndergaard, people, and here's why. He had 1 strikeout in his first start against Houston over 5 1/3. So already his Ks per 9 are off to a really rocky start. This is a guy, of course, that is coming off of, I think, 2 massive elbow injuries in the last 2 years. I forget about the second one. I know he had 1 big one last year. And it has really taken a toll on his velo, obviously. His average fastball was 95.5 miles an hour in his first start. He was an upper 90s, 98, 99, 100 guy in the early stages of his career with the Mets. This is a guy that I don't want to call him, another Harvey route that just, his career completely falls off the map. But I would be surprised if this year, especially early in the season, as he's getting back his rhythm, his timing, he's going to be a guy that strikes out a ton. And again, he's facing a Rangers team today that actually has the second lowest strikeout percentage in Major League Baseball at 17.4%. So we get all the stars aligning. We get a guy that hasn't pitched a lot over the last 2 seasons, major drop in velo, trying to figure out a new team, new division, new road parks, all that. And he's facing a Rangers lineup that just doesn't strike out a lot. And this Rangers offense has been pretty sexy to start the season.
Yeah. There are 2 teams right now I'm not playing unders. That's Texas and Toronto. It's over or pass.
Texas's offense is legit, and they love hitting at Globe Life Park, and I just don't see Noah getting to 5 strikeouts today. So that's the play of the day. Under 4.5 Ks, Noah Syndergaard -120. I got that over at FanDuel. Good show, Mark. A lot going on today. NBA, NHL. You got the baseball card, really thick and juicy. Any parting shots before we say farewell for the afternoon?
Listen, get your bets in early. Get them over with early. Rip the Band-Aid off and go enjoy the rest of your day.
Totally agree. It's the one favorite thing I love about this show. I'm up when the birds are chirping. The picks are locked in by 9 a.m. We lock it in, we do the show, and then we move on with our day. For Mark Zinno, I'm Jared Smith. This has been Let's Bet It. Good luck with your plays.